Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Road to Global Entrepreneurship Week here in Las Vegas. My name is Elias, and I'm here with Buckley, community organizers for the Global Entrepreneurship Network. And we're really excited because we've got a sales and marketing expert, somebody who is just brilliant. We're going to find out why here in a second. His name is Darrell Slay. Darrell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, in your own words, if you could just introduce yourself, your entrepreneurial journey, the business you're working on today.
Well, actually, I'm here in Kaya today, masterminding with Tyson Delacruz over the biooptimization and ketamine therapy and semaglutide weight loss therapy. But in addition to that, what my real passion is business process analysis, sales process analysis, marketing. Kind of a self-described sales nerd, if that if that makes sense. I've had open dialogue with a few of the authors of some of the more relevant sales methodology that's out there nowadays. So I'm constantly bouncing ideas off of them and smart people like yourself, even Elias. we've talked a couple times, and Tyson, and come up with cool stuff, right?
Yeah, just off the first call that I had with you, Darrell, I just knew right off bat you knew a ton about sales and sales marketing, and I was like, oh man, this guy really knows it, because there's some folks who say like I'm a sales expert or I'm a web designer, whatever they say, and then they don't actually they just say it, but they don't do it. You really do it. How did you learn some of the sales stuff? Like, what was your training like?
I was blessed to start with my first sales leadership role at 24 Hour Fitness. Now, 24 Hour Fitness, they were solution selling before solution selling was cool.
What is solution selling?
Well, solution selling is, instead of being a product pusher or talking about how wonderful your product or your company or your service is right off the bat, what solution selling does is it defines a problem, right? So you figure out where the problem's at.
Yeah.
And then the bigger the problem, the more in need of a solution a person is. And at that time, obviously with fitness, it was either weight loss or aesthetics or building muscle or being toned and fit, something like that. But I was able to take those skills from that, learned a little bit more from some other authors and other formal sales training, and I was in the business to business world doing merchant services. So I was the regional vice president for a couple large payment processing companies, and I learned how complex sales worked, not just a simple sale like a gym membership, yes or no, right?
Yeah.
You either want to go to the gym or you don't want to go to the gym.
Right. Here.
Yeah. It's kind of a simple product. Maybe there's a little bit of personal training added to it or something, but it's a very low entry point, simple product. Whereas to combat commoditization, companies have had to come up with complex solutions. So meaning that, there's a software or something like that has a bunch of different plugins, or it has a bunch of different functionality. And which functionality do you need as a customer? Which don't you need, right?
Yeah.
And so coming up with those solutions, or how that plays out, is solution selling in essence.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I have the CRM business, so I do a lot of CRM implementation, and that's the lesson that I had to learn just in real time, right? Like in the beginning, it's like, this amazing software, and I love it because I'm a nerd when it comes to the technology, and so I want to focus on the nerdy stuff. But the customer doesn't care about that. They care about the result that they're going to get, and so they don't need to know like how our automated systems work or anything. They need to know that for every missed call that they get, that turns into a text lead for them, right? And that's that has helped for sure.
Absolutely. And even more than that is, well, what does the text lead do for them? What does their ultimate future state look like? That's from a book by a guy by the name of Keenan. It's called Gap Selling. And so it's what your current situation is, or your now state, and then what your future state is going to be in the future. And painting that picture, and the difference between the now state and the future state is what is in essence called the gap. Matt Dixon talks about it in the Challenger sale as well. Very familiar with the Challenger methodology. As a matter of fact, I'm what's called a natural challenger, which is there was actually 5 avatars of different types of salespeople that they came out of research.
Okay.
Right. So Gartner did a research study with like 5,000 sales calls, and they identified what avatar each salesperson was. So you have your relationship builder, which previous to this study, everybody thought that the relationship builder was the most important salesperson and that they'd be the most successful.
What can you characterize these as you go? Like
Yeah,
what
definitely.
What makes a relationship?
Yeah, so the relationship builder is the person that is in essence the rapport building expert, and that they build these lasting relationships over time.
For sure.
Right. And not that you shouldn't build relationships, but we thought for the longest period of time that building relationships and building rapport was the most important part about converting a sale. Well, I'm going to move on to the next avatar. And then there's the hard worker. This is the guy that answers every email right away, makes 100 phone calls a day, no matter what, and just knows that if I continue to grind and I work hard, some stuff's going to happen.
Numbers game.
Yeah, the numbers game guy. That's it right there. It's the numbers game, right? So, you have your hard worker. Then you have the person that's kind of the customer service agent that's wrapped up in a salesperson's clothing. Okay, so that's your third avatar, and then you have your fourth avatar. That's called the lone wolf. Now, the lone wolf is the one that would have probably got fired, but they produce.
Okay.
So they do their own thing. They don't update the CRM. They don't do any of the traditional things. But they're able to get it through because they have that natural charisma or some natural sales ability that's inside them, that doing their own thing works for them. But unfortunately, when people try to mimic that, or they typically they're the ones that also, because of the top performer, they get promoted to the sales leadership roles. But then nobody can copy what they can do because they're a lone wolf, right? And then you have what's called the challenger.
Yeah.
And now the challenger is defined by the 4 T's. It's teach for differentiation, tailor for resonance, okay, take control, and tension, but constructive tension. Not awkward salesy tension, but there has to be a little bit of constructive tension.
Right. So you said tailor for resonance? What does that mean?
Tailor for resonance, meaning depending on who you're speaking with, they have a different agenda. So typically in today's modern business to business sale, right? But even in other sales, right? Even some B2C stuff, it's not one decision maker.
Yeah.
It might be multiple decision makers.
Right.
If it's a husband and wife, it's both of them are the decision maker. So when I'm talking to the husband, his goal may be something completely different than the wife's goal.
I see.
Right. So I'm going to tailor my story or my teaching, my commercial teaching or whatever I'm doing at the time. I'm tailoring it to who I'm speaking with. Because what is their ultimate goal? Now, when you're in some of these complex business environment sales, the average amount of decision makers currently today in 2023 is 5.8.
Dang.
You got to figure out 5.8 different people and what their motivations are to move forward in the process to get something across the line now. So tailoring for resonance is very important. And then the big one is the teaching, and it's the reframe. So what a reframe is typically when a customer or client, business to business, B2C, they have an idea of why we're in this meeting, right?
Yeah.
They have a preconceived notion of what the benefit of my product or service or whatever it is that I'm selling has for them.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. Those are all, there's what they originally think, but how much more powerful is it if you can teach them something about their business? Is either equates to making money, saving money, or mitigating risk in a way that they didn't realize beforehand, to where they get what's called an aha moment. They get I hadn't thought about it like that before.
So I'm curious to know, in your experience, how has that worked well and how has that not? Because I can imagine, depending on the personalities, because there's some people that will be receptive to that, and then there's others that, again, maybe like ego showing up of they almost don't like that you're shining a light on something that they didn't know.
Oh yeah, well that's where the rest of the methodology kind of comes in. So one of the things that I'll give you a couple taglines because we all like the little taglines, right? So the first one is telling isn't selling. So if I come in and I just tell you how it is, like, hey, this is why it's how it is, and oh, don't worry about what your preconceived notion was. This is how it really is. Well, it's not going to resonate real well.
No, I just put up a bunch of walls and barriers.
Yeah, you put up a bunch of walls and barriers. But if I act like a prosecuting attorney and I ask you a series of questions, and I don't mean an interrogative series of questions. I mean, we start with your current state. So I'm going to ask you a situational question. What's your current situation right now? So then I'm going to move into a problem awareness question. We're going to talk about what some of the problems might be. And I'm leading you. I'm asking you questions to elicit a prescribed response from you. I already know what your problem is. I'm going to tell you what it is. I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to get you to tell me what your problem is. You thought of it. Right? So then move on to the solution awareness. So now we're going to talk about, oh, well, now that we know that there's this big problem, man, there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. There might be a solution that solves the exact thing and more because of the reframe that we talked about earlier, right? And then we're going to talk about the consequence awareness questions. So now the consequence awareness questions isn't necessarily just bad consequences. Like, oh, if you don't do this, this is XYZ is going to happen to you. Right? The COI, the cost of inaction. Right?
Okay.
Not just that, but we're also talking about positive consequences. If you do adopt a solution, what does your future state look like on the positive at that time? So there's, and it goes even as in depth as this sounds, it goes far more in depth, just really scratching the surface.
Where would you recommend for folks to go learn some more?
You know, you have to read.
Yeah.
You have to read, or you could contact me.
Yeah.
you but, by Matt, okay, Ted McKenna. Also by Matt. You have the effortless experience by Matt Dixon. You have Gap Tell by Keenan. Gap Tell is Human by Daniel Pink. And Daniel Pink's theory, and he was well ahead of his time, is that we're always selling.
Like that, and just even you so are you familiar with the Cartesian logic? Yeah, and so that's where, like, you know, what if you did, what would happen if you didn't? Then you get the super tricky ones of what wouldn't happen if you did, and then the super crazy one that really makes people like mind blown. It's what wouldn't happen if you didn't. And so it's like those double negatives, right? And so it's like when you're asking these series of questions, and especially when you're going to more of a solution or you know, the end result of so what would happen if you didn't do this? And sometimes that'll land, sometimes it won't, because it's kind of direct. So what could happen? And so again, when you kind of switch the possibility, I like to say, sometimes that's where, and this is something that I teach my team too. And because, you know, with my business where we're at right now, is we are kind of A/B testing some different things. So you have a tech company, and so even for the sales, and she's like, well, but you know, I need to know. I'm trying to build it. So first of all, we're not there yet. So don't even ask questions. But I said, we have this product that could be applicable to so many things, and I think that that's what happens too with some business owners, whether it's a product or a service, is that it is applicable in different ways. And you know, again, it's like always like niche down, and I would love to hear your take on that. But for me, depending on where you're at in your business, you know, it's similar to where we're at. Of you're kind of testing where you're going to land. I feel it's asking questions, because if you know your product, you know your service, you know how it could serve somebody, then it really, like you're saying, tailoring more to them, saying, just ask them a series of questions. I love the layering that you did. I think that was phenomenal. And so if we layer the questions in that way, it is kind of getting them dialed down, because I did that in coaching. Is I know what you need. I know the answer, but I want you to get to the answer. I want you to get to that point.
Right. How much more powerful is it if the client thinks that they came up with the idea in the first place?
Yeah.
So much more powerful.
That's great. And I love that. And actually, I have not really thought about that from a sales perspective, but I think about that all the time from a community building, coalition building perspective, right? Like there's some sorts of things that I want to accomplish with the work that we do, but I never come in and say, you know, to all these folks that maybe like government or nonprofits or businesses, and everybody has their own version, and so it's like those questions. So that's really cool. Thank you for helping me connect those dots. Something else you helped me connect the dots with is I feel like I'm the rapport builder. I feel like that's my sales. All my sales come from relationships. I'm really great at that, but I'm not great at creating tension. And I feel like I need to get better at that to close more deals.
It's the problem with the rapport builder is the take control and the constructive tension piece of the challenger, because the rapport builder is so busy building rapport that they don't want to upset or tell them no or take control.
I just had a sales call recently where I have rapport with somebody and I couldn't close the deal, and I was like, okay, what can I say? I was like debating if I should go ahead and turn on tension, and I decided not to, because I was like, I'm gonna keep the relationship and there's gonna be more projects I'm gonna work on, but I don't really like that. I wanted
to constructive. The tension has to be constructive, and the way that you have to set it up well, because if you don't have it set up with taking frame control early on, and then when they deviate from your frame control, reasserting frame control, if you don't do that throughout the whole process, your tension is going to fall flat. It's going to sound aggressive. It's going to sound argumentative or combative in some way.
Especially if you already don't like doing it.
Right.
And so it's like super uncomfortable.
Yeah, in my mindset, I'm already feeling like it's going to be negative. So then I don't even do it.
Going to be, for sure. If you feel that, that's how it's going to come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I would like to go back to the whole niche idea, because that's like a debate in and of itself. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on a company or maybe an individual when they're bringing something to market about, niching down and being like super hyper focused in one thing? Do you think it's okay to be in kind of multiple?
It depends on how monetizable and scalable that little niche is, right? So some market research, but in general, when you're talking about niching down and doing just one thing really, really well, once again, if it is scalable, if it is super monetizable, go for it. But you can niche down every time with tailoring your product to that specific person. It'll seem like their niche.
Yeah.
But you may have, so what you do a lot of the time when you have a product or service is you take who you think or who your target clients are and their different avatars, and you segment those customers, but you segment them in a way that is counterintuitive, right? You segment them based on the problem that they're having. You don't segment them based on what like vertical they're in or demographic they're in or any of that stuff. So the problems match up the same, might be totally different businesses that don't make any sense being in the same segment, except for the fact that your product or service does and solves the same problem.
That's great.
Yeah, I like that, because I think that is super, super helpful. So thank you, because I feel like that's where people kind of get stuck. Is they're like, well, but I solved this problem, but I solved it over here, and I solved it over here, and I solved it over here. And so, but then they're told by all of these experts, they're like, well, no, but you got to focus on one thing. And it's, yes, I see the benefit of that. And I understand some of the theories, but I think to your point too, it's like, but if I'm going to solve one problem and I'm focused on that one problem and I'm figuring out all the different ways to go to that problem, it's kind of that same idea too of even when you do niche down, you're still going to capture others, but that's more in a strategic way, because at least in my experience, it's been, oh, well, you're going to niche down, and you're going to get other people, but it's like, if you're focused on the problem instead, then you're actually targeting those people.
Yeah. And I think that's where the niche down really is the most applicable, is on the marketing targeting.
Yeah.
So it's your ad copy. So you're going to niche down to a specific problem that you're solving. And maybe it's 3 or 4 different problems. And then those are going to have their own ads and their own ad copy, their own BSL or their own reframe, right? For those specific problems. What comes out is you end up tailoring with that person. And the reason why it clicked through in the first place does not end up being the reason why they eventually pull the trigger.
Yeah.
It's one of many reasons why they pull the trigger at the end.
Yeah.
Well, I like we got a master class on sales.
I know.
Bringing it back to Las Vegas entrepreneurship. Yeah, I know our audience really gets because I think this is the deepest we've gone on the sales topic. I feel like they missed out because we're kind of speaking his language.
All right, looks like we want to just
There we go. All right.
all
We're
right.
good.
Temporary outage.
Yeah.
We're back. So
Say that question again. It's just we really want to highlight Las Vegas entrepreneurship as a scene. We want to grow this ecosystem, and so we'd love to hear from you. What you like about the ecosystem, where you think we might be able to improve.
Las Vegas is great because of all the action, right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs here in the Las Vegas area, and myself being one of them, and Tyson being another one, and you being another one, and I as a matter of fact, most of my my friend circle here in Las Vegas are all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So it's like a breeding ground, I guess you would say, really, for entrepreneurs and bad, right? But Vegas is an interesting is a very interesting place. Yeah, I drew a blank on that one.
No, it's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay.
okay.
How can people find you so that they can hire you and pick your brains more on all the sales expertise that you have?
Right now I'm a little niche down.
Okay.
So actually, in the works, and I might as well give us a shout out right now. In the works, actually Tyson, I, and Dr. Mark Guadagnole are going to start doing some sales mindset and business consulting.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna dive down and really do something with it.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that you're doing that together, because I've had a lot of training myself and done trainings about like the mindset of sales. And I feel like that's so important to bring them together and bring that awareness for people. So I love that you guys are doing this.
And I feel so lucky because you guys are right here at the office. I'm gonna elevate my sales skills. So that's great.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't prepared.
No,
That's a really great. Folks, thank you so much for watching.
This is you not prepared.
Yeah. This was
I'm here
ad
for
lib
it.
on the fly.
Awesome. We'll be back very soon with another interview.
All right.